Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen and Fun with Documents. Labor's Intergenerational Planners, Part 3, Foundations for Tomorrow, 2 of 3, Sophies Bill. So, we have already been introduced to Foundations for Tomorrow in a previous video when we had a look at the Intergenerational Fairness Coalition. And today I'm going to have a look at the Australian Parliamentary Group for Future Generations, which is more than 20 senators and members of the Australian Parliament who are committed to securing Australia's long term prosperity. They were established in 2022 and are dedicated into embedding long term thinking and intergenerational fairness into the heart of Australian governance. Meet our chairs. Senator Marie is a member of the Liberal Party. Dr. Sophie is a Teal, independent. Miss Ash is a member of the Labor Party. Group's mission is to align efforts across Parliament and diverse sectors advocating for integrating future generations' thinking and holistic well-being into today's policy framework. How do they know what future generations are going to be thinking if they haven't been born yet? Anyway, they're going to deliver it with some infographics. And 2023, a year of progress and promise. So, collaborative calls for action, such as the formation of the Intergenerational Fairness Coalition, who we learnt from Think Forward, got together in 2023. And we've had a look at Origin. We're still looking at Foundations for Tomorrow. We've had a look at Think Forward and a little bit of a look at Evergen. I do have a bit of a method to my madness. Supporting existing initiative, such as measuring what matters wellbeing framework. I think we've already looked at that one. The Climate Change Amendment Bill from 2023 and current investments into government's youth engagement model. Nurturing an ambitious vision, they're trying to establish an independent commissioner for future generations, similar to that which was introduced into Wales in 2025. Something else we've already looked at. Anyway, investing in concurrent efforts. What have we got? The introduction of a budget statement for future generations and exploring ways to embed future generations' considerations into the work of government departments. And the Intergenerational Fairness Coalition has grown to include a whole lot more non for profits. 2024, translating insight into impact. Diverse stakeholder engagement. Forming youth leadership, ensuring youth perspectives were central into parliamentary dialogue, fostering meaningful collaboration and inclusive policy making. Yep, because no one has a more experienced parliamentary view than a 15-year-old. Legislative process, advanced preparedness for the well-being of future generations, private members bill enshrined intergenerational equality into governance. National and global alignment. This turns out, surprise, surprise, to be connected to UN stuff. Anyway, and vision for Australia's future. That's it. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Bill 2025. Let's learn more.
Mr. Speaker, seemingly insignificant everyday moments can change our lives. There was a moment that changed the direction of my life. One Sunday afternoon, my 12-year-old son and his friends were chatting to me about climate change. And trying hard not to be alarmist, I said that it was something they were likely going to have to deal with. One beautiful boy with a flash in his eyes turned to me and heartily said, "Yes, because you adults have failed us." No malice, just a simple statement of fact. I had to agree with him. Fast forward 3 years, after promising myself to do whatever I could to not leave it to our children to clean up our mess, I'd gone from being a GP to an MP. But that's a story for another day. As parents, we strive to give our children the best possible lives, safe, prosperous, happy and healthy lives. But young people today are going to be the first generation in modern history to be worse off than their parents. Centuries of progress are being undone. Our children, grandchildren and future generations of Australians will inherit a world facing converging crises that we, the current generation of leaders and policy makers, are quite simply responsible for. Climate breakdown, environmental destruction that would have been unimaginable 50 years ago, an extinction crisis, a housing crisis where for too many Australians the dream of owning their own home has become nothing more than a pipe dream, epidemics of depression and anxiety, of obesity and type 2 diabetes. We've let gambling infiltrate the everyday lives of our children, growing homelessness and poverty, growing inequality, and of course, growing intergenerational inequality. Nor is this list exhaustive, but you get the point. These multiple disasters have not happened overnight. They have been decades in the making. But decade after decade, despite decision makers and governments knowing about the seriousness of these problems, knowing the causes, and often even knowing the solutions, have not acted or have been unable to act in a way that prevented these problems from occurring or relentlessly getting worse. Instead, we've seen repeated short-term band-aid solutions and policies that have been futile or have even made the situations worse. So what is the cause of the repeated policy failures on so many different fronts? What is to blame? Well, it's clear. The way we make decisions, the way we plan, is failing us. The systems, the structure and culture that promotes short-term thinking, short-term solutions and short-term populism over long-term vision and planning is the crux of the problem. Add to that siloed, blinkered decision-making and you have a recipe for repeated failure. Over the past 3 years, I've witnessed firsthand the way individual portfolios and ministries of the same government may often work at odds with each other, in competition rather than in concert, where the goals and policies of one undermine the goals of another. In facing so many crises, that much-used maxim, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, has never been more relevant. We must change, and that is what my bill offers today, a different way forward. This bill is heavily based on the groundbreaking work that is being done in Wales. Wales introduced the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and Commissioner in 2015. The very first step there was to develop a vision for the future of Wales, to hold a national conversation to establish what type of Wales they wanted to hand down to their children and future generations. As Sophie Howe, the former Commissioner of the Wellbeing of Future Generations in Wales, said, "It should not be revolutionary for a country to have a shared vision for their future, but many countries, including Australia, do not." Norway, on the other hand, does have one. They have a $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund for the people of their nation to prosper into the future. We have nearly $1 trillion in debt. And so, this bill introduces a framework to change this, to make sure government and public bodies work together to ensure that they take the well-being of future generations of Australians into account in all of their decision-making. This is not an easy reform. It requires broad cultural change, especially from our leaders. So how will my bill change things? Well, it's based on the fundamental principle that the needs and well-being of the current generation should not compromise the ability of future generations to meet their own needs and well-being. It does four things. It creates a legislative framework that ensures intergenerational equity and well-being are taken into account in government and other public decision-making. It imposes a positive duty on government and public bodies to take into account the long-term impact of their decisions. It establishes an independent statutory commissioner for future generations to make sure that everything this Act is trying to achieve is achieved. And lastly, it will start a national conversation on the well-being of future generations in this country. The Commissioner will lead a public consultation process to include a wide diversity of voices to make Australians active co-creators in this new vision for Australia's future. Crucially, it will establish new ways of working that embed long-term considerations and focuses on prevention. It will ensure collaboration and integration of policies of different public bodies and portfolios, so that the policies of one do not undermine the policies and wellbeing goals of the other. Australians want politicians to start thinking beyond their own re-election prospects. They want long-term solutions, they want vision, and they want hope.
And the paperwork that goes with it. It's only 5 pages, and it's what she's already said. It was seconded by Bridget Archer MP, who's a member of the Liberal Party. References the research by the University of Griffiths, which we looked at in another video, about them, which we already know, about the Intergenerational Fairness Coalition, additional quotes, background on the well-being of future generations private members bill, key measures of the bill, and just a quick look at the UN's Summit of the Future. Point being, it's coming from the UN. I'm not going to play that. Don't have time. Because I want to get stuck into 3 of 3, which is going to be their data collection. Anyway, that'll do. See you later. Bye.